The chill of autumn hung heavy in the air as armies amassed on the rolling hills near Auerstaedt. It was the year of 1806, and the Napoleonic Wars had reached a fever pitch. Tensions were high, and the fate of Europe hung in the balance. The opposing forces were formidable. On one side stood the mighty French army, led by none other than Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte himself. On the other side were the combined Prussian and Russian forces, led by Marshal Frederick William III of Prussia and General Levin August von Bennigsen of Russia. As the sun rose on the day of the battle, the two armies stood poised for action. Napoleon surveyed the field from atop his horse, his eyes flicking from one end of the battlefield to the other. He was a man of great strategic prowess, and he had a plan. The French emperor knew that his forces were outnumbered, and that the Prussian and Russian armies possessed superior cavalry and artillery. But he also knew that his own troops were some of the finest in Europe, and that they were prepared to fight with all they had. The Battle of Auerstaedt began with a thunderous cavalry charge from the Prussian and Russian forces. The sound was deafening, as thousands of hooves pounded across the field and the rumble of cannon fire echoed in the distance. But Napoleon was ready for this. He had ordered his own cavalry to hold back, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His troops were highly trained and equipped with the latest weaponry, and they were confident in their ability to defeat the enemy. As the Prussian and Russian cavalry charged towards the French lines, the French cavalry burst forth from their hidden positions. They charged headlong into the enemy, swords flashing and guns blazing. The two sides collided in a shower of sparks and a cacophony of sound. Horses shrieked and men roared as they fought tooth and nail for victory. The battle raged on for hours, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But Napoleon never wavered. He kept his troops focused and determined, pushing them harder and harder towards victory. The Prussian and Russian troops were fiercely tenacious, and they kept coming at the French with everything they had. Every inch of ground was bitterly contested, with both sides suffering horrific casualties. The sun began to set, casting a low orange glow over the battlefield. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of blood. And then, inexplicably, the tide turned in favor of the French. Perhaps it was their superior training and tactics, or perhaps it was simply their sheer will to win. But regardless of the reason, the French began to push back against the Prussian and Russian forces. As night fell, the two sides were still locked in fierce combat, but the French were steadily gaining ground, slowly but surely driving their enemies back. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, the Prussian and Russian forces were beaten. They retreated from the field in disarray, their morale shattered and their spirits broken. The battle had been won, but at a great cost. The French had lost over 10,000 men, and the Prussians and Russians had suffered even greater losses. The battlefield was littered with corpses and shattered pieces of equipment. Napoleon stood amidst the chaos, a quiet sense of satisfaction settling over him. He knew that the Battle of Auerstaedt had been a turning point in the war, an important step towards ensuring that France emerged victorious. As the sun began to rise once more, the emperor surveyed the field. He knew that there would be more battles to come, and that the war was far from over. But for now, he allowed himself a small smile of triumph. He had won the Battle of Auerstaedt, and he was more than ready for whatever lay ahead.